Greetings, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
This is exciting. I've gotten to be on television.
Yeah, you're a star.
Yes, well, anyway. All right, I'm very grateful to be here. I'm glad to be able to speak with everyone, and I hope you can understand me when I speak to you. And I know that I had an agenda that I was going to talk about, but I don't remember what it was. So if you want to remind me, and I can talk about that subject then when you remind me. So what do you want to hear about first from that list that was posted earlier?
Well, the two things I remember are Skinwalker Ranch and sex.
Very excellent subjects, both of those.
And anything about the Taws?
Just one at a time. So one
Okay.
thing at a time. So what do you want me to talk about first?
We'll leave it to you.
No.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Has it, anybody had a chance to watch any of
The
the
episodes?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got through 2 seasons.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So you know a little bit
Yeah,
there. Okay.
Oh,
It's quite interesting.
Yep.
very interesting. Yeah.
so
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
talk a little bit about that then for your
Great.
greater insight of that. All right, so you have the Skinwalker Ranch, and of course it's a television show, and so because it's a television show, they dramatize everything, and and it's a reality show, so they repeat everything as if you don't remember the first part that you heard already. Of course, if they didn't do that, each show would only be about 10 minutes long. But so what is special about that place versus any other place is actually, as you get into the seasons, I think they're going to discover some things that are correct. But what I wanted to caution you about is to remember that it's a television show that's purpose is to get you to watch the television show. And so they overly dramatize things, and they make supposedly they're doing their experiments according to the quote scientific method, but in fact they're not doing their experiments according to the scientific method by any stretch of the imagination. And so you need to be aware of that scientific method. What that means is that you do not have a predetermined thing you're trying to discover. You're just doing experiments, and you're observing what the results of those experiments are, and you must have, of course, a control that is the neutral, so you have something to compare to. And as I've tuned in, as Embrosewy has watched this show for the first season, and I've been disappointed in their way that they do that. But from what I've seen so far, and I have not had the opportunity to watch all the episodes, so I don't know what's in the future, but I have been able to tune in to most of the first, second season that Embrosewy has watched. And I will say that 90% of what they speculate about is not correct. But there is 10% that is very correct. And so I just want to tell you, those of you who are watching this show, what is correct and what you can then look for with greater insight as they're doing explorations and experimentations. And the first thing is, I'm just going to tell you what is there. And then you can just remember that, even take notes of that, so that as you watch that show, you'll be able to know when they're talking about things that are valid versus things that are not valid. All right, so there's all these phenomena that occur, and that have been recorded on video and other scientific instruments. And by the way, speaking of scientific instruments, one of the very good ones that you can have that they use on that show, and I actually recommend that each one of you get one of these. It's called a tri-field meter, and it measures magnetic energy, electronic energy, and radio frequency type energies. And it's the most useful device. And there's different types that you can get, that you can buy, and they're not expensive. But in your everyday life, even if you're not searching for paranormal activities, they're very useful in your own home. So one of the, and I'm getting off on a tangent here, which I tend to do a lot. So if I get too far away, pull me back. And in any case, there is a challenge living in the modern world with electromagnetic frequency energy that is too close to you and can cause not just electrical, your body's an electrical being. And so if you have other energies that are too close to you, it disrupts that electrical flow in your body. And that can cause confusion. It can cause your brain to stop working very well. So you're trying to work on a problem and you simply can't concentrate on it. It can also actually cause physical problems if you're exposed too long to it, such as cancer. And in your life, if you have one of your tri-field meters, for instance, right now we're sitting in front of the television set here with the computer. And if you have a tri-field meter, you can turn it on and you can immediately see where you're sitting right here, where I'm sitting right here. What's the energies that are affecting, that are coming and hitting my body right now? You can see that very easily with the tri-field meter. Well, more importantly, is you see your needle or your digital readout, whichever type you have, and you'll see it move into the upward area, and you can move your meter around your room, and you can see where your problem arises. So for instance, sitting in front of a computer like this, if you look at your computers, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, you'll see the power card that goes into the computer, and then that plugs into the wall. And normally, most computers in between the plug on the computer and the plug in the wall are going to have a little electrical device that's kind of rectangular. That puts out a tremendous amount of harmful EMFs. And so if you have your tri-field meter, you'll see that as you get closer to that device, the meter goes off the scale. That's very great reading that. But so that tells you that you want to make sure that that component of your computer is as far away from you as it can possibly be. And then you'll see that if you put it far away and you hold your meter where you're sitting, oh, well, everything's fine now. But if you're sitting with your laptop here and that little device is right next to the laptop that's in the electrical connection, and now you measure, you're going to be off the scale. You're going to be not in a good place. So please, if I recommend strongly that everyone have one of those tri-field meters. And the other thing is that where you sleep, that's very important when you sleep that you don't have any type of electrical or any type of energies that are man-made that are bombarding you for the whole time you're sleeping in your bed. So again, the tri-field meter can go around your room, around where you sleep, and make sure that right where you sleep is a very neutral place, that there's not any type of electromagnetic energies coming in. Now, I know I got off on that tangent for a reason, but I'm not sure I can remember what it was. So going back to the Skinwalker Ranch, so I apologize for my divergence there. Going back to the Skinwalker Ranch, they get a lot of measurements with their little instruments, their tri-field meters, the dosimeters, all of those type of things. Measure radiation, measure electrical waves, radio waves, cell phone waves. So here's a couple of things to remember. Number one, there are legitimate things that they measure. There are legitimate energies that they can't explain, that are in fact generated by sources on the Skinwalker Ranch. Well, there's a lot of things, as this goes back to the scientific method, there's a lot of things that they get readings for that have effects that are caused by their own equipment. So for instance, all of these people that you see in the show, they're all wearing little microphones on their lapels, and then they have little radio transmitters that are stuck in their back pockets. And these things are putting out electromagnetic waves that are registered oftentimes on their devices. And they don't talk about that. Oh, look, our device is going crazy. Well, maybe it's going crazy because it's a foot away from the radio transmitter in your back pocket. This is the type of thing, when I said they don't do scientific method, is that they look and say, oh, this is exciting, and I don't understand that, and I've never seen anything like that before. And well, a scientific method would say, well, what else could be causing this? And so, for instance, I have a fellow, a big guy with red hair, kind of like the fellow you have here, Brother Kiel, a little more stocky than him, but same complexion and red hair. And I'm sorry, getting divergent again. Anyway, and he said, "Oh, look at my phone; it's going crazy." And it's when you look, wow, that phone is really going crazy all over the place, the cell phone. And then they say, "Well, does that ever happen before?" No, it never happened before, only here. And that may be true, and maybe it doesn't happen anywhere. But they jump to conclusions about, well, that's something strange here that's causing that. And it may not be that, oh, it could be something mechanical with the phone still. And so they don't look for other reasons. Now, what are the real reasons that things occur there? All right. Number one is that, yes, that place, not just that ranch, but that entire valley, that Uinta Valley, was created by a large asteroid impact many millions of years ago. And that particular asteroid had a great deal of metallic content in it, and still does. And there's large portions of that. It didn't hit as one, it broke into several very large pieces. And that is buried in many places, not just on that Skinwalker Ranch, but throughout that Uinta Valley area. There's the large asteroid pieces that are buried under the ground, typically about 25 feet down, but sometimes it's deeper, depends on the type of surface that it hit. Can be 25 feet down, some as shallow as 15 feet, but sometimes as deep as 100 feet. It depends on what kind of ground, if it was soft, hard, rocky, whatever, it hit originally. Well, this very large metallic meteor, was an asteroid actually, this affects all types of magnetic things. So if someone has a compass, for instance, and they're near that one of those large metallic sources, then that compass is not going to read correctly. It doesn't matter whether it's a regular compass or a digital compass, it's going to be the same. And if they have other devices that are measuring electrical things that could be affected by that large mass, or gravitational things, see, so gravity is affected by the density of the ground around it, especially if it's metallic. So where they're near a large metallic source, then they're going to have all kinds of strange readings. That's number one. Number two, as I saw in one of the recent episodes that Embrosewy was watching just the other day, as they were drilling a hole, and they discovered, yes, that there is moving water not very far under the ground at that particular location. And this is a key part to remember. A lot of the things that they attribute to being paranormal activity is actually just this water that flows under the property. The property is in the bottom of the valley. There's a plateau up above it, and the whole ground is very salty, and salt conducts electricity. And so if you have salty water, and if you have a big rainstorm, and that water percolates down through the ground, and then it starts flowing across the ground downhill, that's going to create all kinds of electrical charges where that water's flowing, and it's going to be able to be read on the machines. But they of course they see that as being something that's paranormal. It's not paranormal, it's perfectly natural. Now, what are some of the other phenomena? So something you don't see, I don't think I've ever seen in any of those episodes that Embrosewy watched, at any of the plateau, if you go, and I'm not sure even you can see it on Google Earth, so I'm just going to tell you, but on that plateau, you see the Skinwalker Ridge, and then that ridge leads to a very flat plateau above it. And on that plateau, varying between a half a mile and a mile away from the edge where you see all the things where they're climbing up the thing, Anyway, about half a mile to a mile, depends upon the location, how close it is. You'll see an extremely high power electrical transmission lines that run in a straight line across that plateau. Now, when we're talking about EMFs, I hope that none of you live anywhere close to a high power transmission line. These things are extremely dangerous to your energy, extremely dangerous to your health. Extremely. I can't say that a big enough word. And if you have the high power type of ones that are by the Skinwalker Ranch are so powerful that if you took a fluorescent light bulb, not attached to anything, just the light bulb by itself, and you held it in your hand, and there's nothing on either end, it's just the light bulb, a fluorescent tube, and you started walking towards that high power line, when you're as far as 100 feet away from it, that light bulb would light up because the power is so great. 100 feet away, that's transmitting through the air that it lights the fluorescent light bulb up. So that's very powerful. So a lot of the phenomena that they think they see is actually caused by those high power lines. So for instance, if it rains, okay, so the rain is falling through that high power line area, and it's going through the salty ground, which is conductive of electricity. So now you're going to have extremely highly charged water, number one. Number two, when they see that, for instance, oh look, there's a light going across the sky right above the mesa. Well, if it's a light way up in the sky, well, that's something different. But if it's a light that's going right across the mesa, or the mesa seems to light up itself, this is always caused by something related to those high-powered lines. And so when you have certain weather phenomena that occurs, it can cause electrical discharges in the clouds, in the air, that make light seem to appear, make light seem to travel. And so don't confuse things that are actually naturally occurring with things that actually are paranormal. So what are the paranormal things that are of the Skinwalker Ranch? And am I talking too much? Am I talking too long? Yeah, I don't want to
No.
keep people time too
You
much.
can't talk too long.
All right, because I get long-winded, I apologize for that, but it's just my nature, I can't help it. So anyway, there are 5, and they have been there for before any humans were ever there. There are 5 portal openings that all occur in that 500-acre Skinwalker Ranch, and that is significant. So, as you know from portals, and again, this is a great time to have your tri-field meter. Your tri-field meter can measure when portals open and close. How does it measure that? Well, you put it on a magnetic setting, because whenever one of these portals open, there's always a change in the magnetic field. But it's not something that, the way you can tell whether it's a portal that's open or if it's some other magnetic aberration is when you have, I'm going to assume you have a tri-field meter that has a needle on it, but you can also have digital ones as well. If it's a true portal that's opened up or has even opened up recently and is closed, there'll be some remnant energy remains for at least a day. Then when you're there by the portal entrance, the needle of the tri-field meter will be going back and forth like this, like that. And it won't be going, whoa, look, it's getting greater, it's getting greater, it's getting greater. No, that's not a portal. So if you see it, oh, it's getting greater, it's getting greater, it's getting greater, but that's not a portal. It can be something else that's significant, but it's not a portal. Portals always have this great fluctuation in magnetic energy that's flipping over all the time. So on your tri-field meter, if it's a portal, then the needle's going to be moving back and forth like that. If it's something different, some other type of energy source, not a portal, then the needle will just start increasing slowly and going up to a higher level. And then it's a matter of determining, well, where's that higher energy coming from? But don't misconstrue that's coming from a portal, because it's not. It's coming from something else. So because you have these 5 portals all having opening on this 500-acre ranch, which is about a square mile, almost a square mile of size. It's not square though, the ranch goes all over the place. But in any case, whenever you have that type of occurrence, it's not common to have that many portals opening. Now, what's the deal about a particle opening? Who cares about a particle opening? Well, you care because these particles are leading to other worlds. And some of those other worlds are very much like Earth. The air composition is the same or similar. So if you were to go through that particle, you'd be able to go to that planet, and the temperature would be okay, and the amount of oxygen in the air would be okay. So those type of particles are benign as far as energy. That doesn't mean that there can't still be denizens of those worlds that come through those particles that are not very friendly to you. But that's another thing we'll talk about in a second. But going from the energy standpoint, there are also particles that lead to worlds that are quite toxic to your world environmentally. So for instance, they may be a very radioactive world. The whole world's radioactive. So that particle opens up, it lets radioactive energy come through the particle. It may be a toxic environment. So for instance, in your environment here on Earth, you have basically about 21% oxygen and the rest mostly nitrogen. That's your atmosphere that you breathe and your body's used to. There may be worlds that the air that's coming through is neither of those gases. Maybe there's no oxygen, maybe there's no nitrogen, and it might even be something flammable. Maybe it's a hydrogen world. So it comes to, or helium world, and it comes through, and that's flammable gas in your world. And so all of a sudden you see a ball of fire. Well, what caused that ball of fire just to come popping up out of nowhere? And I don't know if they see things like that on the Skinwalker Ranch or not, because I haven't watched all their episodes. I haven't looked at the Skinwalker Ranch for 20 years or more. But balls of fire that seem to come from nowhere are probably very highly likely particles that are coming from worlds that are hydrogen or helium worlds, or combine both of those gases. So when they come through, if there's any type of ignition source nearby on Earth where that particle opens, then that's going to ignite a flame. And if it's a constant flame, that means that particle's still open. If it makes a big burst of flame, but then it's gone, that means the particle was quick, open, shut, got ignited, and was gone. Okay, so I'm getting long-winded even for me. All right, so anyway, so I want to be clear on that. I'm going to think what else is important. So the particles, beasts that come through. All right, so let me go to the cattle mutilations. So part of the big theme of this location is cattle mutilations. So I'm going to tell you a lot of history about that, so you have a better understanding of it. So there are documented reports in photographs from the Skinwalker Ranch, and not just the Skinwalker Ranch, but all the ranches around that area, of cattle mutilations, where cows were killed and they were torn up. And occasionally, when a particle is open, depending on where it is open, a beast might come through that particle from another world that is a very angry beast, not happy to be coming through a portal and going to someplace it doesn't know. And in its anger, when it comes through, it may, if it comes through and there's a cow right in front of it, it may rip that cow to shreds and kill it very quick. But that's not what we're talking about on the Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, that occurs, and that's occurred all over the Uinta Valley at different ranches, not just this ranch. And so don't confuse that type of cattle death and mutilation from, because that can occur from either predators that are on Earth itself. There might be a bear that's right there. There's, oh, I'm going to kill that cow or whatever. Or it could be a being or a beast coming from another world. But don't confuse that with the ones that are the surgically removed ones. All right. So on very, very rare occasion, there have been aliens that have come to place, not just the Skinwalker Ranch, but places all over the world that the same type of thing happens, but where they're doing basically, well, let's take this eyeball and take a good, better look at it. So they'll take out the eyeball and they'll take it up and they'll go examine it more, and it's not a big deal for them. Many of the things that they experiment for and they look for, most of them can actually be explained by 100% natural physics. So for instance, if salty water is running underground, it's going to affect magnetic compasses and other things that measure electrical fields, magnetic fields, radio fields. All of things can be affected. If you have a large metallic mass under the ground, again, that is going to affect gravity. It's going to affect heat. It's going to affect electrical. All of these things are going to be measurable, but they don't know the source. So if what's going to happen, because you're dealing with metallic objects, large metallic objects, is that if they ever actually go and drill with a true drill to drill into the ground, and they're over one of these areas, now there's a very large mass underneath that mesa. So you see that Skinwalker ridge there that runs all along in a long length like that. And if you look closely there, you're going to see that there's so many big rocks that are all cracked, and there's so much broken rock everywhere that's just come down. Well, why is there so much broken rock? This is not just eroded rock. If it was eroded rock, eroded off, it would be all rounded and everything. It's just very angular. So it was broken suddenly. And so why was it broken suddenly? Because a large part of the asteroid is buried underneath that ridge, right at the edge there, right underneath. And so that's what caused that uplifting and rapid breaking of all the rocks there. That's why you see that type of formation. And so if they ever do any drilling underneath that ridge and they go down, they're going to hit at some point, because a very large mass of the asteroid, they're going to hit that, and it's going to break the drills, because they're not going to be able to go through the metal. The drills are designed to go through earth and rocks that aren't too big or soft, too hard. But when they hit a large metallic mass, it's just that's going to be the end of their drill, the end of their drilling anyway. So anyway, hopefully at some point they're going to do something like that, and you'll be able to see the results. See, did I cover all of that?
Well,
There
what's
was something else.
I thought something interesting that you said when you were talking about the aliens mining
Oh, yeah.
the asteroid out of the
Oh,
ground,
okay,
which
yes.
was
All right, so yeah,
created a lot of those caverns.
yeah, okay. So that's true too. All right, so I think everyone's probably watched the Star Trek show where they beam people all around and things. They can beam things. That's actually a true technology with a lot of alien races. It's not so. It's always interesting to watch how science fiction in your media actually depicts reality. So they're very future seeing here. The writers who write those shows, because they actually are writing things that are true in reality. So anyway, that whole concept of a transporter to be able to dematerialize atomically an object and then rematerialize it somewhere else is an existing technology. Not here for your planet, but many alien races have that type of technology. And so the asteroid that hit this area about 10 million years ago, that asteroid is composed of a lot of different types of metals. Now, most asteroids or meteors that hit the Earth that are metallic in nature are mostly iron and nickel. But this particular asteroid actually has a lot of rare elements that are part of it. And because of that, it has value. It would have value to the Earth people. If the people who own that Skinwalker Ranch, if they find one of these big sources, they'll have millions and millions of dollars from all of the rare metals that are part of it. But I probably shouldn't say that, because then they're going to watch my show and then they'll come to look for that to make money. But in any case, the aliens they do like that type of thing, and so they'll find one of these large masses of if it's not too big, they can't do great big ones, but they'll do ones that are just the right size that they can transport, and they'll just basically beam them out of the ground and beam them up to their ship, and what's left is a cavern underground where that piece of asteroid was that's not there anymore. And depending upon the shape of the asteroid, it may just all collapse, and then they may have a sinkhole up above, or if it's sufficiently dome shaped that it can support itself, it's just left with a cavern. And over time, the water running through there, it waters the cavern, and they get what they think are natural caverns, but they're actually not natural caverns. They started out as asteroids, pieces that aren't there anymore. So does that answer that question?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. that's
So
great.
anything else on that subject before I go to the next subject?
Well, anybody that's watched the show, do you have any questions about anything that you've seen that,
Has it been covered?
right?
Yeah, I have a question. When one of the characters, one of the individuals that was there, was digging, he had some kind of something happened to his head. His scalp was
I know the part you're talking about with a little bulge up there on the top.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, was that part of him drilling those from the asteroid, the energy from the asteroid itself, and he dragged that apart where he kind of activated that, and his body couldn't take that energy? Was that from that?
Remember, and it may not have been from that actual event that you saw, but perhaps he might have been by a particle, because of those particles, there are 2 of those 5 particles I told you about.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 that come from radioactive worlds. I mean, and they have high level of radioactivity. So when those particles open, thankfully they don't open very long. They're normally open and shut in just a minute or 2. But when they are open, they let out a high amount of radioactive energy. And that can have instant effects on people, from blistering to bulges on
Okay.
type of thing. So yeah, those type of things must, again, now this is my speculation. I don't know for sure because I wasn't there and don't see that. But my speculation is that at that time they were near one of the particle openings that was letting a lot of radioactivity through, and so it caused that type of effect for them. Now, I should also say that the particle entrances are not stable. So they may be here one time, and the next time they open, they may be 100 yards away from there, or 200 yards, or 500 yards. And so just do keep in mind that the particle entrances move. So like, for instance, they may measure a high level of radioactivity at one point at one location, and that may be from one of those radioactive particles that is open. And then the next time they don't measure anything, and what happened? Well, the particle's closed, and it may open again in the exact same spot some future point, or the particle's moved and it's not there at that spot anymore.
What about the title Skinwalker? Because I was listening to the history, what they said it was between 2 Indian tribes who are fighting with each other, which I think it's a little speculation. And then one of them cursed the other tribe, and they cursed the land. Is that true?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
That's just
Myth.
well, I think what happens is that when strange things occur that cannot be explained by normal means, then people look for unnormal means to explain them.
Yeah.
So
right.
in this time frame on Earth, people are very familiar because of movies and television shows and books about alien races and paranormal. That's a very big thing. And so now, if something strange happens, then they look, well, this must have something to do with aliens, perhaps, or things like that. But back in the earlier days, when you were talking about the Native American tribes, then they didn't think about that in that term. So they would think, well, in their religious beliefs and their mythology, how would they explain this? Well, then a skinwalker is an explanation to, well, this is how we can explain these strange events that are occurring. So, for instance, cattle being killed is a very perfect example of that. When a cow is killed, or any type of beast is killed, and they can't determine how that beast was killed, they don't see footprints or things like that around the beast. Well, it doesn't mean that there wasn't something there that was killing it, that did have footprints. It just didn't get left the type of terrain that it was there. And so they make an explanation that will fit within their understanding, and that's where Skinwalker explanation comes from.
And the cattle.
Thank you.
You had explained about why the cattle would suddenly dash across the
Oh,
field.
yeah, that was
the
the sun.
Explain that briefly. Right, one
Well,
of those
all right.
portals.
So yeah, you're going to see times, and again, this is not just on the Skinwalker Ranch, it occurs in other places as well. But there will be times when you have a herd of cows. That's a very good biological measuring device, is the herd of cows, because normally cows are extremely placid. I mean, you drive around your countryside and you see a herd of cows, and they're either eating or sleeping or standing still. They don't move around a lot unless they're forced to, or unless they're very frightened about something or trying to get away from something. So those type of things have occurred on that Skinwalker Ranch, where all of a sudden the herd of cows will all start running away somewhere, or they'll go as far into a corner of a fence as they can do, and they'll be all crowded together. And those are instances where portals are opening near where the cows are, and are letting an energy through that's very disruptive to them. Now, animals, unlike humans, because humans tune things out. So if you didn't tune things out, then you'd feel all these energies the same as the animals do, and you would react to them. You'd move away from energies that were harmful, just as a natural inclination. But as a human being in your modern world, with all your computers and electromagnetic frequency waves around you, you just tend to ignore all that. So you just sit there and you continue to work, and you're being bombarded by these different energies, and you just ignore them and do your thing. Animals aren't like that. Animals are very reactive because for them, it's self-preservation. If something occurs that they don't understand, and then their immediate reaction is fear, and to run and get away from it. So it doesn't have to be something that they see. It can be something that they feel. So if all of a sudden they feel something abnormal, anything at all, could be all of a sudden it's 20 degrees hotter where they were than it was just seconds ago. Like the temperature changed up or down 20 degrees. They're going to run away from that because they don't understand why that would happen. If they feel radiation, if one of the portals open that has radiation, they're going to immediately run away from that and get as far away from it as possible. That's actually one of the best scientific instruments that they have at the Skinwalker Ranch is their herd of cows.
And there was something fascinating. You had spoken of one of the portals does, when it opens, it has a direct connection to the sun, our sun. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, that's the sun energy has a lot of different energies that come through. And so that can be a very intense heat that comes through like that. But it's very brief, like 1 second. It's done. That portal is very quick.
Doesn't stay open. That's good.
Right, but it's like if any of you have ever had hot flashes, so you can imagine if you just walk, if you don't, especially if you don't normally experience hot flashes, you're just walking around and all of a sudden it feels like you're just getting the most intense heat on you, but then it's gone, and that's going to be frightening to you. But because it's gone, you as a human, you're going to, okay, well, don't know what that was. I'll just keep going about my day. But if you're a cow, oh, that's very frightening. You want to get away from that spot as fast as possible.
Fascinating.
All right, are we done talking about that? More questions?
There was on that show, they talk a lot about seeing UFOs. Like there's a lot of lights they say they see in the sky, or something they catch on camera that's kind of blurry, and they assume it's a UFO. Are they really seeing UFOs, or what would that be?
Great question. And the answer is yes and no. Some of the things they see are not UFOs, as I talked about earlier about the high power lines that are up on that mesa, and that actually can cause a lot of, if you see like a large glowing mass, not a little thing, but a large glowing mass that moves, that's almost certainly related to the high power lines. But if you see a little teeny white dot that's going across the sky in an erratic way, that's not possible for Earth ships to do, and that's very likely a UFO. And now here's the thing. They're seeing that type of thing on the Skinwalker Ranch because they're looking for it. Guess what? You could see the same thing right where you live, as long as you're not in a city. If you're in a city, there's too many lights. But if you're someplace that's out in a rural area that doesn't have a lot of city lights to dull the night sky, and if you spend some time looking at the sky in the day or the night, either one, as long as you don't have lights at night that are from the city that are dulling what you can see in the night sky, or in the daytime, you don't have a lot of smog that's dulling what you can see in the sky. I tell you that you can live wherever you want to live. You can live in Europe, you can live in Africa, you can live in Australia, you can live in the United States or somewhere in South America or Japan or anywhere that you want to live. And you can look up in the sky day or night. And if you do that often enough, let's say you spent let's say that 5 times during the day, well, you're not enough. 4 times during the day, at different times of the day, you look up into the different parts of the daytime sky, and also at night, do the same type of thing. You're going to see some interesting phenomena. Now, if you're doing it at night, you're going to see a lot of things that are just satellites in space, and you need to understand how that. So if it's a satellite, it'll look like a little star And it just keeps going across the sky at a very steady rate, going around and around and around like that. That's a satellite, so don't confuse that. It might be your space station. That shows up a lot. It's quite large in the sky. The reflection of the sun off the space station, that's what you're seeing. Just like the sun reflects off the moon, that's why you see the moon. So it's the same type of thing. So if it's going like that, you're just seeing a satellite or the space station. But if you're seeing lights that are moving in weird ways that aren't going in a linear way, but they're up and down and all around, or even just a little bit of movement, then that's a UFO. And there's a lot of them. There's over 100 at any one time. There's over 100 crafts from other places besides your solar system that love to observe this planet. And if you want to see them, you can see them at random, like I was just talking about. You can actually cause them. So for instance, when they shoot a rocket into the sky, that attracts attention right away. And so anytime that you do something that's in the sky, you're going to attract attention. So if you shoot a rocket up, even if you shine a very bright light, you take one of your laser beams as an example, and your little pinpointer laser beam, you shine that up in the sky and move it around a lot, that's going to attract some alien attention, and they're going to come over to see what's going on up there. You can even take a very powerful flashlight, just a regular light, but very powerful, and shine it up and move it around, blink it on and off, and that attracts attention. So if you actually want to see the same type of UFOs, the little white spot UFOs that they show in that Skinwalker Ranch program, you can do that right where you live, as long as you don't live in the middle of a city. Well, again, there's too much lights and confusion energy to see it. But if you live in a city, you could go visit a rural area, you can see it. So just take anything that you want to do and do some kind of disturbance up in the sky, and keep an eye out, because what will happen is those little white lights, what they are, they're actually not spacecraft, they're probes. So what happens, those are not the alien spacecraft. Those are far, far beyond. But what they can do is that if they see a disturbance somewhere, they want to know what is causing that. And so as soon as you make some kind of disturbance up in the sky that's abnormal, then it's very common that you're going to very quickly see some of those, one or more of those little white dots moving around in the sky. And day or night, it's going to be the same. But day is great because then you can see them in the daytime. It's a lot easier. But that is one or more of those alien races sending little probes to see what's causing that disturbance in the sky. And that's why you see them blink there, and they're there for a few seconds and move around, then they're gone. Because they're just there to observe. Once they see what it is, then they don't have any interest in hanging around, and they're gone. And
Can we make a probe trap? That'd be fun.
well, you can't catch them because they're, as I said, they mostly do these things by transportation. So that's why they appear and disappear. It's not like they have to come by propulsion to this location and go by propulsion to leave. They just pop in, pop out. So does that answer that question, sir?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Philos.
You're welcome.